Gardeners have a hate-hate relationship with weeds. We are forever singing our tales of woe in regards to opportunistic flora. Hosting weeds in one's garden is often described as a win-lose situation. The weeds win and we lose. But are we being too pessimistic? Is the garden really half weedy? Maybe we can use weeds to our advantage. That would be win-win, which would at least elevate our relationship to a love-hate one with weeds. I was curious about concocting a weed tea to feed my plants, so I decided to experiment. I'll show you what happened, how my cucumbers reacted, and I'll also share a refreshing cucumber salad created from the harvest bounty. I'm Siloé Oliveira, and I love to explore new techniques to produce more food in a more sustainable way in my suburban homestead. As any other respectable lazy gardener, I have an abundance of weeds, so I decided to give weed tea a try as a fertilizer. I just dumped a bunch of different garden weeds into a barrel filled with water, mixing them in, leaving them submerged. It is said that weeds can tap into subsoil, pumping up buried minerals into their tissues. Weeds are an essential part of soil building. They are also rich with nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, so I thought a weed tea made sense. Perhaps this would be a failed experiment, but I could only know if weed tea is worth the trouble by trying it. I let it steep, or actually just rot for about 2 weeks during hot weather. All I can say is that it smelled terrible. This may not be something to try in city gardens. The acrid smell was very much like fresh manure, but worse. Because the mixture had just sat there with the occasional stirring, it had gone anaerobic, fermenting away. It probably had all kinds of savage bacteria. I was hoping they were friendly. But really, you don't want to get this liquid on you. Using a watering can, I started to water my plants, concentrating on my cucumbers. I had actually applied a weed tea just like this 2 weeks before filming this. And after applying it, the cucumbers had sprung up like crazy. They were producing masses of fruit. So I decided to continue applying the mixture, although I couldn't really pinpoint if it was the weed tea or the prior organic fertilizer I had applied when planting. Cucumbers do like water and a bit of a nitrogen boost. I was seeing the beginning signs of powdery mildew forming, and that usually foretells doom. I had a bumper crop until now. The vines had formed a dense jungle-like mat, covering everything in a canopy of cucumber. But the smell of the tea was horrible. I can't overemphasize that enough. While I thought I was getting great results, I was really considering whether I should ever use this vile concoction ever again. I suppose that brewing the tea under aerobic conditions by using an air pump could result in a more pleasant aroma and maybe even a more beneficial bacterial culture. But that was something to be investigated in the future. After applying the tea, I watered the plants thoroughly in an attempt to wash a bit of the stench away. It persisted for 3 days, however. A few days later, I went out to harvest more of the cucumbers, a delicious white Holland cucumber in a long Japanese variety. Some of the white cucumbers had grown too large and had matured into yellow fruit. It is still edible though. These cucumbers have basically no bitterness. I was pleased with the results of the wheat tea, although since I didn't have a control group, I couldn't even conclude if I had just been lucky or if it had actually worked. About 3 weeks after the last application of wheat tea, the vines started to become diseased and spent. Of course, this is common in cucumbers, so I couldn't even conclude that the anaerobic bacteria-laden tea had possibly caused any harm. All I knew is that I had great, crisp, homegrown cucumber, and that's a great thing in a hot summer afternoon. On her hands, she holds the seed to cast it over barren ground. She waits for rain, a storm will come to wash away her grief and pain. Spring arrives without fanfare, summer sneaks a passing glare, autumn leaves without a trade, winter holds its long embrace. I decided to make a refreshing herb cucumber salad using the more mature cucumbers. I gathered a handful of sweet marjoram and thyme from my front yard. To use a more mature cucumber in a salad, it is a good idea to peel and de-seed it. I used a vegetable peeler to take away the tougher skin from the mature yellow cucumber, revealing a white, tender, and crisp flesh. On her hands, she holds the seed to cast it over barren ground. She waits for rain, a storm will come to wash away her grief and pain. Spring arrives without fanfare, summer sneaks a passing glare, autumn leaves without a trade, winter holds its long embrace. I then cut the cucumber in half lengthwise to expose the seeds inside. They were already large and tough, but all of the flesh was still crisp and edible. Using a spoon, I scraped the insides of the cucumber, leaving 2 boat-shaped pieces. You can throw the seeds in the compost. To have actual viable seed that you can save, the fruit would have to be a little bit more mature, almost beginning to rot. I cut the halves in quarter and proceeded in chopping the cucumber into large pieces for the salad. It's incredible the amount of water they exude when cut. This is a sign of peak freshness. Store-bought cucumbers cannot compare. If you never tried homegrown cucumbers direct from the vine, you do not know their full potential. I reserved the yellow cucumbers and cut about half of a long Japanese cucumber. I didn't need to peel or de-seed it because it was not mature and had small seeds and thin skin. I used the blender to make a simple but powerful creamy dressing. I dropped the handful of sweet marjoram and thyme I had picked earlier and washed well into the blender cup. To that I added 1 garlic clove, which incidentally I had grown myself. You don't want to overdo it in the garlic since this is a raw dressing. I washed well a green onion I picked from the garden and put it in the blender. Flavored olive oil was the next ingredient. A few tablespoons a little less if you want it to be lighter. A touch of white rice vinegar to add zest and brightness. Some coarse sea salt, or whatever salt you prefer, should be added to taste. I added a bit of water just to get things blending, but you don't want it to be too watery, so don't add too much. I covered it and pulsed it for a while to get things blended evenly. I also decided to add a lime to increase the acidity and really play off the fresh, crispy cucumbers. I blended it until liquefied. It emulsifies into a thin, creamy texture. I poured this over the cut cucumbers and mixed them well using tongs. You can use this flavorful dressing in any salad of your choice. This may be a simple dish, but it is scrumptious and a very welcome side for a hot summer evening. Now, one thing is for sure, a homegrown cucumber is a slice of heaven. Join me next time for another garden adventure. Remember to send your questions and comments to seedofchoice@gmail.com. And don't forget to subscribe to Suburban Homestead.